Without further ado, Mr. Robert Schwartz, Senior Vice President from Morgan Stanley.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Can you hear this okay? Everybody hear this? Okay. Thank you for inviting me. This is not the wine tasting?
It is not the wine tasting.
I thought it was the wine tasting.
Where's the wine at?
What I'm here to do is to talk about how I journeyed the path to what I'm doing now from the beginning. And really not to talk about the stock market or investing. I'll answer questions after. I'll just don't know exactly what you want to hear, but what I'll do is tell you a little story about myself, where I started, and what I'm doing, and how I think I got there. I was born in the Bronx, New York, 1945, so I'm 70 years old. I grew up in the Bronx, left there when I was 13 or 14. With my parents and family, moved down to Miami and went to school here, graduated high school, grew up on the beach. Now it's known as South Beach. Then it was known as God's waiting room because everybody there was dead or nearly dead or waiting to die. Very few young people, there's no such thing as Soho or anything like that. When I finished high school, I went into the Army. My father was a house painter. So really, I had two other brothers and a sister. We really had no money. So when I came out, two things happened of high school. Had the Cuban conflict really starting to fire up, and they were starting the draft. So all the guys of my age decided rather than do that, we'll join the reserves, serve our 6 months, so we don't have to get involved in any war and then continue our education. So I went into the Army Reserves. When I graduated high school in '62, some of you probably still weren't born, went up to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. My older brother and myself did, and served our 6 months there, came back, had to get a job, went to Miami-Dade Junior College at that time, had to get a job. When I got out, I was 22 years old. I got married to the same, who was my wife now, married about 48 years. I started dating her when I was in the 8th grade in high school, or junior high school. And we kept in touch all through those years. And so really, since I think she was 14, she's now 17. So, you know, time flies. And I'm telling you about her because I'm going to go through how I got where I got. I came out and I went to junior college. I needed to get a job, so I got a part-time job. They had an office in the college on 27th and 135th Street. I went in there to see what I can get. I had a car. When I came out of the Army, I saved up enough money to buy an old Chevy, which I did. So there was a job. I was just going through the catalogs and everything else, and there was a job at a company called Bache Company, B-A-C-H-E. They had no idea what they did. All they needed was somebody to start at about 11, 12 o'clock, drive to their 4 or 5 different offices and pick up mail, and then bring the mail back to Lincoln Road on Miami Beach. Not knowing what they do or what kind of mail or what I'm going to be picking up. I went for an interview and I got hired at $1.25 an hour. And I had to use my own car and my own gas. And I would I would get out of college, Miami-Dade. I would go to, I'm not that old, but I'm old. I would drive to the airport. Now, there was no I-95. There was no airport expressway. There was none of that. I drive down 27th Avenue all the way down to 36th Street where the airport was. And I'd go to a cargo place called Eastern Airlines, is what the name was at the time. And I'd pick up a box of mail that came from the home office of this company I was working for and brought it back to Lincoln Road. Had no idea what was in the box. And I would do that, drive to Lincoln Road, drop it off, go upstairs to the office, and then I would do some stamping and filing or whatever, and then I would start my journey from Miami. I don't know how well you know Dade County, but I'd go from the Lincoln Road office to the Surfside office, pick up mail. From there, I would go to Coral Gables, downtown Miami, Hallandale, and stop in all these offices, bring all the mail back to Lincoln Road, which they called the Regional Operations Center. And I'd just give it to them, and that was it. And then I would do some more filing, and I'd go home. And I did that every day of the week. I did that for about a year and a half, and by this time I learned what they did. They were a brokerage house, stockbrokers. Bache & Company was one of the biggest. Eventually became Prudential Bache, and then eventually became Prudential Bache Shields. Then it became Prudential Securities. Prudential Securities became Wachovia. No, Thompson McKinnon, and then it became Wachovia. So Prudential, Bache, Thompson McKinnon all became Prudential Financial, which eventually became Wachovia Securities, which eventually should have been the sign person. I saw the sign people changing the signs more than anything else. Got rich. Then it became Wells Fargo, and we became Wells Fargo Advisors. So that's the history of the companies I worked for. Now, when I was working at Bache, I would do the mail. Then I got promoted where I was what they called the stencil clerk. And every time you bought or sold the securities, you used to get this piece of paper in the mail. And it was called a confirmation. It was a confirmation of the transaction you did. If you bought 100 shares of telephone, blah, blah, they would come out with the account number, and I would look in a file that had stencils, because there was no computers. There was nothing. Everything was manual. And I would take the confirm, put it in this little machine, and I'd pick out the stencil from the drawer that went with the account number. Put the stencil in this thing, slam it, and the client's name, address, and everything would come on there. And each day I did that, I would say there were probably about 200 of these a day. So you can imagine standing in front of a drawer, pulling out all these things, putting them in an envelope, having put one at a time through the postage machine. And then I was in charge of doing that. That was my job. From that point, believe it or not, I was watching what everybody else was doing. In that office were about 25 or 30 stockbrokers. And where I worked in the back office, the operations area, they ran the operations for South Florida. All the office's business was done, the back office business was done through there. There was a regional operations manager. His name is, he passed away a while ago. His name was John Pandolfi, and I always wanted his job. When I went for my first interview, he interviewed, and this was for $1.25, or $1.60, I'm sorry, I forgot which one it was. He interviewed me, told me to go home. I was interviewing to pick up the mail. He told me to go home and wait for his call, and he's going to see if he's going to hire me. I sat by the phone. I never left. I was living at my parents' because I didn't have my own place yet. I was sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. It didn't ring for 2 days. I got up and went back up to his office. I said, I've been waiting. He told me to wait. How long do I have to wait? He says, well, I haven't finished my interviews yet. I said, I can't wait any longer. I need a job. He says, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to do what you do. How do I do what you do? And he hired me. Had no idea what the business was really about other than what I was doing in the back office. And that was in 1964. I just finished my second year of college, and I just fell in love with the business. I had no idea what really was going on, but in my spare time, I would sit down. I got friendly by this time with some of the brokers and what they did and how it worked and what the back office was like. I got promoted. I left school, didn't have money, so I really knew I couldn't go on anyway. I didn't have enough good grades to get a scholarship, and they weren't giving scholarships. So I knew I had to quit this, go to school, and then find the money to continue my education. And I couldn't find how to do it. So I figured I'd stop school, work for a couple of years, save money, and then go back to school. So that's what I did. I resigned. The next thing that happened, I got promoted from doing that when I became full-time, and they made me what they called a credit clerk, margin clerk. keeping in mind, I had no idea where I was going at this time. I just fell into something that for some reason, and those times I had the ticker tape going. My job was to change the tape. It ran on cellophane behind a screen. I would, if you ever go to Lincoln Road, anybody here been to Lincoln Road? At the corner of Lincoln and Washington, I think now it's a McDonald's, I'm not sure, but they have a big window upstairs. It used to be Bates and Company's window, and they had the Dow Jones averages changed every hour. And it was with the cards, like that used to change a football game or score in a baseball game. 2 runs and you put up the 2. And so each hour I would go and change in the window, open the window up, change it, and put what the averages were. Now, the Dow Jones averages at that time, which are now about, well, I don't know what time it is. It could be anything right now. But it's about, let's call it 17,000, 18,000. At that time, it was about 400. 401, we used to move maybe 1.5 a day. I mean, what you see now is, that would have been the whole market in 1 hour. And I did that for about 6, 7 months. I got promoted to be a credit clerk. I would figure out margin accounts. I was good in math. I was good with fractions. And that's how, but there was no computers. The box I used to pick up at the airport and bring over there was, we used to call them EDP sheets. And they were coming from the home office in New York. Every account got a sheet that did activity the day before. They'd put it on a plane at 9 o'clock at night in Wall Street and send it down to Miami. It would be here by 10 o'clock. I'd bring it. And there's where you figured the accounts, the changes in the prices and so forth and so on. I did that for a good, and I'm going to open this up for questions and answers because I don't know what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you at the end of this, I'm going to tell you how I think I did what I did. I then was promoted to be a transfer clerk. A transfer clerk at that time, today when you buy a security, there is no really physical paper. It's held in the house. That's what they call a house account. But it's in safekeeping. You don't get a certificate. You don't have to bring in a certificate. When I started in the business, everybody got a certificate. If you bought 100 shares of telephone and you wanted it shipped to you, they'd ship you the certificate. If you bought $10,000 worth of bonds, they'd ship you the certificate. When you sold it, you'd sign the back of it and bring in the certificate. Well, that was costly. So at that particular time, the transfer clerk, if you bought 100 shares of telephone and you told your broker you wanted it shipped, he'd put a piece of paper in a window and it would say your name, 100 shares telephone, and you want it shipped to the address where you live. I then would take that instruction, type it on a transfer paper, what they called, I was the transfer clerk, put those instructions on and send them to the home office. And within a few weeks, you'd get the certificate. And that was the transfer clerk, transferring it from Bates & Company's name to your name and shipping it. Then I got promoted to go out to one of the branches. I did that for about a year, most boring job in the world. But I knew everybody who had what, for sure. Then I got promoted and I was sent out to one of the branches to be the operations manager. And from Lincoln Road, I went up to Surfside. And then I went to Hallandale. Eventually to the major office was downtown Miami. When I say major, they did the most business, the biggest, so forth and so on. And to this day, the biggest offices are in downtown Miami. So I went ahead and went out to Surfside and became the operations manager. What I did there was operations manager was in charge of the wire operator because when you bought a stock, they had to send it on a wire, like a Western Union wire. Then I had a operations clerk who did all the paperwork and prepared all the packages that I used to pick up to send down to the region. The operations manager handled all the brokers and reported directly to the manager of the office. I did that for a few years. And I did it in different offices. Each time I got promoted to be a bigger office. Eventually went to downtown Miami. Ran that office for a good few years. Then they brought me into the region where, on Lincoln Road, the guy who I originally told I want your job, he wanted me to become the assistant regional manager. And what we did there, what I did and he did, is we ran all of the back offices from Atlanta to Puerto Rico. So we hired everybody, we fired everybody, we trained everybody. The managers of those offices were in charge of the brokers. We were in charge of the back office and including the switchboard operator. I know they all have different names now, but this is what I did. So we would travel separately to each office from time to time and visit. If a manager was not doing his job, I'll never forget the first time I ever really had something that I didn't like what I did. I had to fly to Puerto Rico to fire a manager. And, you think it's a good job, but it's not. So there goes, I go in there for things that he did and didn't do or whatever, and I had to let somebody go, and I had to stay there till we found a replacement. The same thing if somebody, let's say Atlanta needed a wire operator, we would interview that wire. We'd set up all the interviews. I'd fly up for 2 days and do all the interviews and then come up with the person and offer the position. About 3 years later, the person who hired me got promoted, and he went up to run a bigger region in New York, in Manhattan, and they gave me the position to be the regional operations manager. So there I was running about 200 employees. You didn't have too much HR, too much compliance. It was sort of run the business right and do it good. Keep everybody clean so they get in trouble. There was no like it is today, which is much better. It was more like the person who was running the place was like the place it was. So you'd go into different areas and the whole environment was different. And I'll come back to that in a second. From regional operations manager, they came in one day, my regional vice president, and he ran the Southeast United States, said to me, listen, we're doing away with the concept of having regional operations center. We're going to put operations in each office and cut out the middle where you are. We were a cost center. I said, okay. He said, do me a favor, write all your employees' names down and find a position for them. The ones you can't find, we'll have to let them go. So there I was for the next month, sitting with my assistant at that time, going through each office, who we can move to what position, and then I had to get rid of everybody in the regional center and find them positions. Well, I did that. It took about 60 days, and it was coming up to the end of the year, so we were going to implement that in January. I go up to the regional vice president when I was all done with this, and I said, here it is. And he goes through this thing with me for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. He said, where are you? I said, what am I going to do? There's no more region. I'm a regional operations manager. He said, well, become a broker. I said, I don't know anybody. I have no money. Blah, 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 the people that have money, so forth. He said, don't worry, we'll make you an assistant manager in the Lincoln Road office, and you produce. You become a broker. I did that. They gave me a salary as assistant manager at that time of about $500 a month, and they gave me a guarantee on my commissions that I would make $600. By this time, I was already married. I had 2 children. How old were they? Keith? My son was about 4 or 5. My daughter was like 7. The young lady who left just was my granddaughter. She's a sophomore here, so I'm really old, okay? I had 2 kids. There I went and I sat down in a chair, and I was supposed to earn a living by commissions. When I took my test for my license. I sat down in my chair in May of '72. The Dow Jones averages 2 days later hit 1,000. 1,000. The next week, it started to go down. The next month, it continued. The next year, it continued. All the way down to 400. From 1,000 to 400 took about a year and a half. Anything you bought for anybody, they were losing money the next day. So I said, let me start with, first of all, I had nobody to call, so I couldn't lose anybody any money. but let me call people where I do business. The drugstore, the grocery store, the barbershop, wherever. Hey, and what I would sell would be income, whether it be tax-free bonds, or I wouldn't touch a stock at all. Didn't know enough about it yet, but I knew if you bought a 5% tax-free income bond, it's 5% income, and eventually it matures. I did that, and from there, I earned a living, started to develop a nice business. I then became a manager and produced. And eventually, I became the complex manager where I ran Dayton-Broward County. I ran Dayton-Broward County for Beach. I ran it for Prudential, for Wachovia, and Wells Fargo. I was a complex manager up until about, I would say about 4 years ago, when I decided it was too much already. I've been doing it too long. It was going to kill me because it was a pressure job. I was running about 250 brokers, about 600 people. And we were handling, I was handling about $25 billion in assets. Just think about that. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how many zeros it had. I had no idea. And I would travel from office to office and just did that. As each firm was taken over for whatever the reasons were, they continued to keep me on. Until about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to step down. Maybe, I would say 5, 6 years ago. I stepped down. They asked me what I wanted to do. I said, I live up in Aventura. I just want to manage one office, and I want to produce. I had my sales assistant's name at the time was Teresa Oliva. Teresa Oliva I hired as a sales assistant probably about 35 years ago. When I became the complex manager, I called her in one day, and I said, Teresa, you're the broker. I can't handle this and do this. So I let her handle the book. And to this day, she's my partner. We're 50-50. And she worked her way up from being a sales assistant at, I forgot the name, it was Quick and Riley, I think, or something like that. A lot of these businesses are out of business. So that's basically, a year and a half ago, I left Wells Fargo Advisors as manager and producer. Producer meaning broker, financial advisor. I moved to Morgan Stanley. Why did I do that? Because I was there 48 years with the company plus the predecessors, all the predecessors. Wells Fargo is a great company, more of a bank than an investment house. I wanted to get back to investing money for people rather than worry about checking accounts and loans and so forth and so on. So I always said to myself throughout my career, whatever company it was I was doing, it's their car. If I don't like the way it's going, give them the keys. I didn't believe in taking a paycheck just to take a paycheck. If you're going to complain, don't take the check. Do something about it. So I picked up and left about a year and a half ago and went to Morgan Stanley, which for me was a good move. For my clients, it was a good move. So what do I attribute all of this to? I always had certain things that I looked at a certain way and not always the way everybody else looked at it. I felt as long as you were in charge of something, or if you want to be in charge of something, you got to be focused. You got to want it. If you're doing it, there's a difference between a job and a career, in my mind. All these things this is me. I didn't read this in a book. Not that school isn't important. There's certain things that unless you've done it, you really don't know exactly how it is, how you would react in different situations. So I went ahead and said to myself, okay, what do I want to be at the end? Because if I'm this now, and I want to be that later, I got to start acting like this now. And there is no, in my mind, there is no other way of doing it. I mean, if I had to do it all over, what would I change? I would have finished my education. I didn't need an education at that point. You didn't need a college degree. They never even checked you went to high school or not. If you could fill out the application and they liked you, you got hired. Education was secondary. Yes, when you came out of college, you made more money, just as today. But I couldn't afford to do it, so I had to do it a different way. So I knew what I wanted to be. What did I want to be? Money was part of it. I wanted to make money. I didn't want to have to worry like I used to worry from hour to hour. I never thought about where we're going to eat dinner. You know, what restaurant. I thought about, am I going to eat dinner? I didn't think about, I grew up in a hard place, South Bronx. You grew up quickly there. By 11 years old, you're almost an adult. You knew what to say, where to say it. Taught you street smarts. And I think that's very important. I love, people read books. I think I've read 1 or 2 books in my whole life. I read articles, newspapers, periodicals. I wake up, and not because I can't stay, I don't know, it's just a habit. 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm on CNN. And I'll swing over from CNN to CNBC. And I'll go to Fox News. And then I'll go, by the time I get up in the morning, I know everything that's going on in the world. The greatest course I loved when I was going to school was current events. It used to be called current events. And that's all we talked about. I like to know what most people don't pay attention to. And I've learned, whatever I liked to do, whether it was golf, whether it was riding a bike, whether it was bowling, I don't care what it was. I wanted to do it with people that had money. So when I would seek out to get clients to build my business, and you can use this for anything, I would drive down to Rickenbacker Causeway, where they have the bike, you ride across the bridge. Everybody knows where it is because, sorry to say, some people have died riding their bikes there. But these people had money. So I went there to ride the bike. I made sure if I took a MasterCard and charged the football tickets in a good section with people that I knew had money. I used to go to places, they don't exist anymore, cricket club, the jockey club, where I would sit at the bar, make friends with the bartender. And he knew what I did, and he would make sure that he would introduce people to me. Just cheap way. I couldn't give money to charities. Didn't have money yet. So I gave time. I got involved in the community. I don't care what it was. It could be for the littlest things. So today, or the last, eventually I was the secretary-treasurer of the Jackson Memorial Foundation. I was the chairman of the Victory Center for Children, Victory Center School for Children with Autism, which is right over here right up in North Miami Beach. I was, I'm trying to think, I was on the Dade County Commission for Finance. I was, I don't know, lots of things I did. I'm always, I don't know if any of, I'm usually in the newspaper where they have the parade, where they have the social events and pictures that they take. I always try to, I'm usually there weekly because my wife, and that's why I brought it up, how long I'm married. I think the most important part of my career was that my spouse participated in helping me build my business. She was not a broker. She didn't want to talk stocks or whatever. She was my social person. The cookies you see there, she made those. Why did she make those? Because she likes for me to leave an impression. They might not remember me, but they'll taste the cookies. Hey, that's the guy who brought the cookies. We have client appreciation dinners. She does the centerpieces. We go out to dinner, I would say 4 to 5 nights a week. We never go to the movie. Why? You can't talk to people at a movie. To me, a movie is, I don't know, I'll wait till they come out. I'll watch it on Netflix at 10 o'clock at night. I always wanted to be where people were. I always wanted to be able to talk. I got involved in every charity I could. Eventually, if you're good enough at doing that, you don't have to tell people what you do. They'll know. Dress. I always thought of myself as how to dress by saying, how would a football player look like if he came out on the field without a uniform? He wouldn't look like a football player. Even though I remember, and I think it's coming back, there was a point in time, not too long ago, that ties were out of fashion. And then they had Friday's dress down day. I never had that when I was running my office. I felt, just like a doctor will tell you, you are what you eat. I think you are like you dress. If you're not neat, if you're not dressed like a professional, I don't care what you do. Doesn't matter. If you're not polite, if you're not there to help people, I am sure everybody in this room, probably in the last 3 days, had an experience somewhere doing something, asking for some service, and walked away saying, wow, what's wrong with that person? Who needs this junk? I didn't come in here to be yelled at. Nobody wants to help me. Those are jobs. Those are not careers. You see it every day. And eventually, there are leaders and there are non-leaders. And what you got to start doing is doing it now. So you got to set yourself up for what you want to be. And yeah, money isn't everything, but it beats. The only thing it doesn't beat is health, because if you're not healthy and you don't have the health, you don't need the money. But if you want to raise a family, you want to put 2 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids through college, if you want your wife to take care of your kids and not, or your husband, take care of your kids and not work, you've got to make money. There's a couple of ways to make it. Honestly, and it takes long. Dishonestly, it doesn't take that long, but you can't do it long. I'll stop here and ask any questions. Yes?
Thank you for coming, speaking to us. I have pretty similar ideals. I think developing the right kind of habits makes successful people. One of the things, just to reiterate, maybe I caught it wrong, you can't donate money, donate time. You don't need to read books, but constantly educate yourself, try to grow, and then stay focused. Is what you said. Like if there's somebody that you know has it and you want it too, find a way to stand right next to them to learn how to do it. Is that what you? That's the way I've always seen it. Is that somewhat similar to what your method was?
Yeah. There's 2 types of people in this world. Well, actually 3. One that doesn't care, one that's negative, and one that's positive. I stay away from negativity. Just stay away from it. They can be negative. It's okay. It's okay. Who wants to do what? You want to protest? You want to march? You want to do this? You want to go to parties? You want to... Okay, pick your spots. Everybody has a right, I believe, to do what they want to do. You have the right to pick where you want to be. Can you speak up a little bit?
I have an issue with being focused. I have an issue with being focused. What are some suggestions to maybe help a student
Well, I
stay
think
focused?
you become focused when you sort of know what you want to do.
Okay.
Then what happens? If you don't know what you want, and it's okay. I mean, you don't have to know now. But if you, by the end of school, I think you need to know some direction. But right now, I would say you're in a free stage that do you think I want to do this, and maybe I don't want to do this. Do you want to go to, I watch things. And when I watch CNBC or CNN, and they got a speaker up there, or they got some guy in the market talking about, you know what I look at first? I look at to see if his tie's on right. I'm serious.
I was about to say body language, but
How
similar.
does he look?
Okay.
I'm really not listening to the first few words. Yes, there are some bright people, like Zuckerberg and so forth, but they were inventors of I'm not talking about being inventors, because if you invent something like an Apple or one of those, it doesn't matter how you dress. You don't care. But let's assume we're not all going to be that. So you got to, look like you want to be, decide what you want to be. I mean, if you want to be a sanitation worker, it's okay. You don't have to put the tie on right. It's okay. I mean, I do have a good sense of humor, so I'm not being... That's the Bronx, right. Exactly. Yes, sir.
I heard that you said that it's good to leave your mark every time you go to some place. Thank you. So, I think it's very familiar to me what you said, because I try to exercise this on a daily basis. Wherever I go, it can be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or events, and so on. I try to leave my mark as much as possible. It can be a joke. It can be just being nice to people. It can be just interacting into different topics that people, are usually comfortable with, which it's not really, you don't really care for, but you still have a touch base on every single topic that with people, you will make people more comfortable being around you. And of course, what you said is always helps to have the appearances right, to have the smile, the right posture, and to be able to welcome them just with a big smile. And just to make them, as you said, know you without even saying anything. So I think that's a really good point that you were talking
You know how you do that really well? Try to go to the same places
Okay.
as often as you can. Not 102 places.
Okay.
Nobody can get a reservation at the Palm, if everybody knows where I don't have to. I pick up because I'm always there. When I'm taking people out to dinner, that's where I go. Bagel Cove over here for breakfast. Even the Big Apple Deli over here on Biscayne Boulevard. I go and, hey, Ed, how you doing? Hey, Bob, how you? I go to the same places. Does it get boring? No, because once they know who I am, now you can go to other places too.
Exactly.
If you keep your personality the same, they know what you joke about, what you don't joke about. Don't always be serious. You gotta smile, you gotta have a life. They will know who you are.
Definitely.
And they'll know you by name. And it's impressive when you walk in a restaurant or a store or wherever, and you're with somebody and they say, hey, Bob, how you doing?
Yeah. No, I found it very interesting because I try to include it in my daily life, and it's a great point to have. I think it's really interesting for people to get to interact, as well as what you said, to go to the bar and just interact with the bartender, for him to know, because he's the center of the attention.
Great source.
Exactly. So he's the center of attention. He listens a lot, and based on what you told him, since who you are, he can try to look you up with other people. I try to do that as well with, it can be with servers, can be with anything. It's just socializing, explaining what do you do, and if you're nice enough and the message go through and the people like you, by the way you speak, by the way you are, by the way, a lot of different factors, usually I've seen that there's a lot of return business. There's a lot of people that are trying to look up for you and try to bring people to your door, share your business cards and so on and so forth. So that's very interesting in that aspect as well.
And it's the same way in everything you do. I went to, when Nick Bonaconti, if everybody knows who Nick Bonaconti is, used to be a linebacker for the Dolphins. His son is paralyzed. It's the Bonaconti, Nick was a great linebacker for the Dolphins. His son got hurt in a football, something to do with the helmet many years ago, and he's been paralyzed ever since, and he's been in a wheelchair. And they started a foundation, which today is the Bonaconti Center, which is downtown by Jackson Memorial, for paralyzed people, back injuries. And they're one of the renowned ones in the world. So when that first started, I was working downtown. I must have been 30 years ago. I didn't know anybody. That sounds nice. I used to play high school football, believe it or not. That's when players used to weigh 120, 130, not today. We didn't have steroids. So I then said, I want to get involved in that. So they had a meeting, they advertised it, I went there. There I was, a little schnook, sitting in the corner, and all these people coming in. And I saw Don Shula come in and other people, and I'm sitting in the back of the room. And they were talking about raising money and so forth and so on. I almost left. I said, oh, no, this is not what I... And they finally came around and said, how much can we count on you? I said, about 10 hours a week. Excuse me? 10 hours a week, that's all I got. I can give you 10. And I started. They had me doing all kinds of stupid stuff until I realized I can do a little bit more. I started doing a little more. From that, became friendly with Don Shula. I became friendly with Larry Zonka. A lot of the Dolphins, okay? And to this day, I have their business. Did I go there for the business? Yes. Did I go there for the charity? Yes. That's what I spend my time doing. I'm here. This is what I do. I mean, I've spoken at the U. I've spoken up at FAU and all of that. I'm just out there. I take Saturday and Sundays off. I don't go out Saturday nights. Sunday I spend with the family. We have dinner every Sunday night. My vacations, this year I went up to, spent a week up in the Berkshires. I have about 15 clients that have summer homes up there. So each night...
You visit somebody.
Other questions? Yes?
You said your usual routine was to kind of wake up early, CNBC, Fox News, that sort of thing. Do you use that to help predict certain stocks that you want to sell or for your...
No, I do that because I feel that's what my clients watch. I got to know what was said. I don't want somebody walk into the office and somebody says, did you hear that about XYZ? Yeah, whatever. The public, they have drawn the public in to listen to this. A lot of it's good. It's become more of an entertainment piece. You got to know who the players are. Joe, Joe on CNBC with the nice hair. He used to be a stockbroker. He didn't make it as a stockbroker, so he became. Andrew was a writer for the New York Times. His family, he's got buku bucks. And Maria Bartoloma, who I knew, I went to her wedding. She left, if you remember, going back. She left CNBC and went to Fox Business. She's probably one of the best in the business. She's married to Paul Steinberg, who she doesn't need any money. She doesn't need a job. Guy's worth zillions of dollars. She does it because she likes it. And she knows her stuff. But hardly anybody watches that. They're watching the TV show. And some of the arguments they get into and some of the ways the worst thing that some of them do is if the market's a little negative, they like to make it into really negative. They like to scare people, it's a show. They need the audience. It's like a newspaper. I always used to say, if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, when you turn on the news now, what do you hear about somebody who got killed in Hialeah with a hit and run, somebody who got shot over here, and somebody who killed somebody else over here? It's crazy. You don't hear the real news.
I have one more question about your story. Was it easy to transfer all of your clients from Wells Fargo to JP Morgan?
I handle my team handles about $240 million. We transferred in 90 days, 280. We got additional clients.
So they let you do that, Wells Fargo? They didn't have any problem with
No, they couldn't. There's no contract like that. They have the right to go after my clients also, which they did. But it really doesn't matter where you work, it's who you're working with. I handle probably, in most cases, 4 generations of families. And I handle clients all over the United States. I have clients in Turkey. I have clients in the UK. Trust me, it took 30 some odd years. It didn't happen overnight. Lots of work. Yes?
What keeps you motivated to do what you do today consistently, more than, educating students and young peers who admire your position in life and your success? By your actual work itself, what motivates you to continuously work at Morgan?
I believe I'm type A personality, that's for sure. Got to be an extrovert. You got to like people. If I don't like somebody, I don't deal with them. I don't socialize with them. I can't be everything to everyone. I like to help people. I'm still in the business because I think I know everybody here is totally probably computer literate. I have trouble turning mine on. Actually, I have my assistant sign on for me every night. But at home, I don't even go on the computer. I do if I want to buy something. People reach a certain age where they can't get on the computer and just buy and sell. That's not what I do. I advise people. I'll advise them how to set up a portfolio, how to get where you want to get financially, what schools your children shouldn't go to, what condo you should buy or house. They bring me into the whole process. I have a program that we do before I take on a client. Before somebody, and it might sound like, wow, you know, it's really snobby and all of that. But no, you got to have the people care, and you got to know what they want, and you got to do it right. So when I meet a client, and if you wanted to be a client of mine, I'm not going to open up your account today and send in a check. You're going to come into the office, and we're going to go through a whole program of who you are, what you do, how many children you have, what's your income, what are your goals in life, how many people do you have to put through college, you know, how many vacations you go on a year, blah, 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 blah. How do you set aside for taxes? Do you have the write-offs? Do you have a mortgage? And then we will put a program together. This is what your portfolio should look like, if I like you. If a client comes in and says to me, well, I don't want to answer that, and I don't want to answer this, you're in the wrong place. Number one, everybody is litigious. They sue. Everybody sues. You know, I am sure, and sometimes I say things and you see it the next day, what you're probably going to see on TV, on the radio, and the newspapers, in the next, I would give it a week, 2 weeks, maybe now, law firms advertising. If your financial advisor, your stockbroker, whatever they call us, has lost you, or if you've lost, or if you had lots of tech stocks and you're down this much, come see us. We can get your money back. So there are cycles in everything. You want to know about the market? I think by the end of the year, we're going to be higher than we are now. I think the market, we're right now, the market's down about 10, 12%. We'll go down some more. In the next 6 weeks, I think it'll be over, and I think the market will close up probably 10% for the year. When I say the market, I use the Standard & Poor's. That's the 500 stocks. So this is not a bear market. We're not going into a depression, recession. This is just a correction. The market has been going up for the last 7.5 years. I'm not supposed to talk about the market because I didn't get compliance approval. That's why I hesitate saying anything. But so what's my job now? Not earning a lot of money, holding hands, speaking to people, going over, putting the fears down. How do I handle it? Client calls me up and says, oh my God, I can't handle it anymore. I said, are you losing sleep? Yeah, I'm getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning and I go crazy. I said, let's sell. Because if you're losing sleep, you don't belong in here. Let's get out so you can get some sleep. If you're not losing sleep, hang in there. Remember, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we were at 700. 18,000. Some guy today got on the TV and said we're going to 11,000. He might be right. I don't think so. There's something.
I have two questions. My first question is, as a financial advisor, and as someone that's looking for investors in my immediate future within the next 5 years, what would be the best way to convince you of a high risk, me, or what would be the best way to convince you to invest in me, a high risk invest? I don't know what the term would be.
You mean to hire you?
No, not to hire me. As me looking for investors in a restaurant, for example, what would be the best way to convince you to invest in me?
You mean to invest in whatever you're doing?
Well, yeah.
I don't do that.
You don't do that?
That in my business is called selling away. In other words, no matter what I buy, no matter who I invest with, no matter who I get to invest, let's say I own a restaurant, or I want to open up a hotel, I want to do this, and I get people, and I can raise millions in a minute and get them to invest. They still think I represent Morgan Stanley no matter what I do. So if I invested with you, that's an outside investment. I got to get compliance approval. to do that. I can't invest outside without their approval. And then they scrutinize everything we do. You can never become a client. I'd rather have you as a client than invest in your business. I do not have any outside business. I'm thinking now, do I? I don't have any. I used to. I don't have any anymore. In this business, it's like any other business. You have good and bad people. And the bad people can really hurt you. Not just you. Everybody hear of Bernie Madoff? Bernie Madoff was an investment advisor, money manager in Manhattan, who he stole, pyramided, phony, call it what you want. He was sentenced to, 75 years in jail. His son committed suicide for taking people's monies and losing it and spending it or whatever. It was just a pyramid scheme. And he lost. I got friends whose lifestyles totally changed. They were worth $10 million. They're worth this. And it happened overnight. And I was asked many times, guaranteed you 16%. If it's too good to be true, usually is, right?
Yeah. My second question is, I'm extremely competitive in any work setting, school, everything, all around. So when you feel like you're outworking anyone in the room or everyone in the room, how do you pass your own plateau?
Say that again. Put the mic. I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Now I can.
You hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. So when you reach a certain plateau, for example, when you feel like you're outworking everyone in a room, how do you surpass that plateau to get either a promotion or just push yourself further?
I never had to push. I was just always, no, not fortunate. I would say that nobody gave me anything. I earned everything that I got. Yes, there are people that get things. I never got anything. Everything that I got is because I earned it. So pushing myself I always worked at 100%. I even went to work when I was sick. When I felt that I was tired and I took off. I'd go away for a week or two because it's not worth it. So the other thing you got to manage throughout your life is your work and your family. And you can't let either one of them, your family comes first, I always believe. If you let your job, your career, your business affect your family, just think about this. I forgot her name. Chief executive of, Yahoo? She's pregnant. She announced it the other day. She's having twins. She's having it in December. She had a son about 3 years ago. What did she do? She could afford to do it. Yes, we can't all do that. She built a nursery next to her office. And she's going to use it again. She feels she can't be away from work on maternity leave that long. She's going to take care of her children there.
I have one more question, actually. There's two types of kind of students at the beginning. So there's the book smart and the street smart. I believe I'm not a book smart person. I'm mostly street smart, so I get to learn from people like you. I get to listen, see the interaction, trying to learn as much as possible, analyze the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they move. And what I try to do is try to have as much this kind of experiences to get to meet a lot of different people. They can be powerful people or just all kinds of different people, which made me realize that I can be able to talk to a janitor and talk to him as the humblest way if possible, and all the way talk to a president or a minister or an ambassador. I can do the connotation and have to know between the difference between the talks of this kind of category and this kind of category. But since I'm not really a book smart person, I try to pass all my classes, try to get all the basics about it, and try to learn as much as possible from the experiences, from the teachers and so on. But I believe in after school, the most important thing is really to know which kind of skills do you have. and what can you do as a person, and how can you make it better for you and your family, since the two aspects of life that are very important, as you said, is health and family, and the rest comes in based on your situation and based on your, your brain, if you can take care of business or not. But what do you think would be a difference between a street smart guy and a book smart guy, for example, in your line of work?
I think you need both. Can't just be all one. You have to be yourself. You can't try to make yourself to be somebody else, because you come across as, you can read people. You know if they're a phony or not. You feel it. So be yourself. And the other thing that helps you immensely is everybody usually has quite a few friends. Get rid of the ones. Don't have to be angry with them. But when I say get rid of them, I mean, go to other friends, those who don't want to be anything. Or they want to be what they are now, and that's it. And they're not thinking of the future. They don't want to stop growing up rather than being grown up. And there are people like that. So I always used to, and I grew up in a place where everybody thought about nothing. Okay, but just getting out of there. And I stayed away. It was tough.
You made it to make a difference in your life.
Yeah. When you're hanging out with positive people who want to be somebody, don't know what they want to be yet, that's okay, but want to be somebody.
That's a great question.
I took my granddaughter who was here, she got accepted originally to Emerson College for Communications. Excellent school. She wanted to go there. It was $60,000 a year for the first 2 years. It was going to cost her $500,000. And I told her I would help her, but I'm getting to an age where I've got to help myself also. So she says, well, you work at Wells at that time. Can we go into a Wells office to give me a college loan? You go in. No problem. They'll give her a college loan. And I'm sitting there listening, so forth and so on. And they punched some numbers. Yeah, you can have $50,000 and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. She finished, and I said, how does she pay it back? Well, 2 years after you graduate. I said, how much is it going to cost? $1,600 a month. For how long? Probably the rest of her life. I said, okay, Brooke, you can go to Emerson. $1,600 a month starting the second year out of school. How much is your rent going to be? She looked at me, she said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go. She went up to, she applied late, so she was at Santa Fe. She made the dean's list and everything, and now she transferred here because she wanted to finish out with hospitality and all this other stuff. You got to make some serious choices. Now, does she know really, really, really what she wants to be? I bet nobody here really, really, really knows. If something good came along, I got my job, and I fell into this by accident. All I was looking for was a job. I had a car. Big deal. I didn't even get gas money. I never thought about the stock market. Never. I didn't even know how to read the tape. And there I was, driving for them, picking up packages. From that, I finally knew what I wanted to be when I was 21 years old.
Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, well, I wanted to see the mic 'cause it looks cool. I haven't got a chance to talk. Hello? Testing. All right. Everyone, my name is Patrick. This is a little too loud. I can speak up louder. Going off of something he said, Jordan, if you don't have the news, if you have a grandma, you can talk to them. They're more than willing. My grandma had me running down to South Campus when Obama came to give a speech, and it was crazy. I didn't even get to see him. There's so much traffic. And I could relate to you. Coming from a hard background. But what do you guys deal with commodities?
I don't. I'm licensed to. I think commodities. I try to stay away from trading. I've been around a long time. Lots of people eventually lose money. You got to understand that in every market, whether it's commodities, stocks, bonds, 95% of all transactions are done by institutions. 5% is done by you and me. So no matter what we do, it's not going to make a difference. And that's what you see today. When you see the market at 4 o'clock, you see the market at 2 o'clock, it's up 400 points. Don't mean anything till 4. I've seen the market move 1,000 points in one day. It used to take a year and a half. You got the computer programs you're fighting. If a computer says to do this at this price, bing, they'll sell millions of shares. If you watch CNBC about 5 or 10 minutes before the close, they will tell you how many buy orders they have or sell orders. And they'll either tell you got $100 million worth of buy orders, $200 million worth of sell orders. And these are the computers. How do they know? It's the computers telling them what to do. So it's... Well, the market is very dangerous to invest on your own. And eventually, the businesses that you see fail are going to be the online ones because people are making their own decisions. Eventually, they'll get wiped out. Eventually, they will. I've been around a long time. They will lose it all or step away.
Also,
Yes.
if say I owned a big company.
Is the wine tasting going to start now? Go ahead.
How would I open up a stock? Like, say if I had a corporation, I wanted to open up a stock for
Okay. Open up an account, you
my
mean?
account, yeah.
Uh-huh.
For people to trade, invest in. How would I
Oh, you wanted to go public with your company.
Yes.
If you have a company that you want to take public, there's good news, bad news. You know, if you're not public, you don't have to account for anything. If you're public, you have to account for everything. So some companies don't want to go public. They're still private. But you come to an investment house like a Morgan Stanley, you have to have, I can't handle anything. I can't help anybody with any business that's doing less than $10 million in business for the last 5 years and has about, we're talking big numbers. You know, you can't open up a hot dog stand and go public. But I might invest in that if you did that.
When you said internet companies, were you referring to
What?
when you said internet companies, were you referring to Facebook and
I wasn't referring to anybody.
just
I was saying people are doing their own trading on the internet through whatever. The people who are doing this, you, me, and everybody else who does it,
we're the ones
making
who
your
are
own decisions.
Oh, right?
You're not
Okay.
getting any advice. You think you know what you're doing, but you're buying 100 shares or 1,000 shares, and somebody's selling 6 million shares. I mean, you're up against the big boys. The big boys usually win. If you're going to buy on the internet or don't need advice and buy quality, something that pays a dividend, you buy a GE, a telephone, you buy an Apple, and hold it and put it away. Put it away. If you think those companies, let me put it this way, if those companies go out of business, lots of others will go out before.
Very true, very true. Now, would you suggest between ratios or
I'm not going to
charts?
talk about the market.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
One more. Okay, hi.
Hi.
So we live in a changing world. Climate change is one of the biggest challenges that our generation is going to be facing. One of my dreams is to be a sustainability consultant for hotels and restaurants. I don't really know anybody that does that.
Say that, what is it? To do what?
Sustainability consultant, like environmental sustainability.
I don't know what that is.
Eco-friendly.
Oh, okay.
Turning hotels.
Green, go green.
Going green, exactly. So I want to be a consultant for hotels and restaurants to go in that direction, but I don't really know anybody who does that kind of thing. So I'm kind of blazing my own trail here.
No competition.
Well, I think, no, I do think that the big chains have that. You know, a Regis, I think a Marriott, if you go, you'd have to go big corporate, and they'd have to have the need. I think they probably would have the need, but I have no idea. You know, the only thing I know about the different places You know how they operate. And that's where you find quality versus not quality. I know that if I'm in if I'm in a hotel here, let's just pick XYZ Hotel, and I ask them where the men's restroom is. They'll tell me go down there, make a right, and over there it's a left. At a Regis Hotel, is it Regis? No. At a Ritz Hotel, that person will walk you there. Just keep that in mind. That's the difference. That's who you want to be. If you go to a Ritz, where's the men's room? They'll walk, let me show you. Or where's the store? Where's this? Or they're going to walk you. That's how they're trained. That's how the hotel company, the Ritz, wants it run. So, you're either going to be first class or any class. Now, not everybody can be a Ritz, but anybody can do that in whatever business you are.
Little things make the difference.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Whether you buy there or not, you're going to go back. Or you're going to send somebody there. I had a great experience. I just went into XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Got to care about people.
Big time. All right, I have a question now. First of all, I want to say thank you so much, and you're just giving us a ton of valuable information on what sort of mindset someone could take along with them to just become successful in whatever industry or, whatever activity we are just going to participate in the future are doing currently. But my question was regarding finance. What sort of trends do you see in the future, at least maybe the next 5 years? Because I know myself and a few of my other colleagues are looking to invest, but the thing is we don't have too much capital. I was thinking of asking you just what's a good way to get our foot in the door as far as investing, maybe starting in the thousands number, not millions.
At your age?
Yes, and considering the trends going on nowadays, because I'm sure things are a lot different. We have like Bitcoins in the equation now, and all these different new trade things going on.
I still use the dollar. I don't know about Bitcoins. But if I was your age and you wanted to invest and start a little savings, you open up an IRA account and you put as little as or as much as you can and just buy mutual funds. Buy an index. Don't try to pick a stock. Pick the industry. You like healthcare, you buy that index. Or you buy the mutual fund that likes healthcare. Or if you like drug stocks, not if you like drugs, if you like drug stock, you buy an index.
How can we find a place like that? Like what companies would I go to, I guess, be consulted on this sort of thing? Does Morgan Stanley do that? Well, I guess they do, but a higher scale, right?
Yeah, but I didn't come here to talk about investing. Okay, but anybody can come in and open up an account. At Morgan Stanley, a financial advisor doesn't get paid on anything under $100,000. And my normal account opening is $1 million. So that's how I run our business. And I have a junior partner, but I'm building teams. We do both international, domestic business. But it's difficult. But you can open up an IRA account anywhere you want. Open up a savings account. Put some money away. I think before you start investing, you should have at least 6 months of income or money put aside of what you would need for 6 months of living.
Okay.
Whether it's rent, whatever it might be.
Good. Does anyone else have a question?
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. Let me get a hand. Let me get a hand for Mr. Schwartz.
Take your cookie.
Nice. Take a cookie, everyone. So thank you so much for coming. Hope you learned a lot. That's a ton of valuable information. Next conference will be next. It'll be October 1st, I believe.
Let me
It's the
interrupt.
first Thursday.